Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming in to my session. And first of all, I would like to say thank you very much to MACC for hosting me, especially during this National Coaching Week. I believe it's been a fun and fantastic week for everyone. And I also had the opportunity to participate at the IBPO coaching as well. And today I'm going to share a session with everyone regarding on successful career and business and how you're able to achieve that by understanding your character profile and also hidden talents. So a very quick introduction about myself. So I actually have over 15 years of corporate experience. I started off with an engineering background and I branched out into sales and business development, product management, and then finally marketing. So I had, industry experience in various B2B, from basically manufacturing, OEM, all the way to water industry, oil and gas as well. And so these are the things that I've actually done in terms of progressing throughout my career. And I also realized that as I moved progressively from one industry or one position after another, I realized that to be successful in my career, it's not just necessarily having the right skill set and also the job scope that I'm pursuing. It's also about understanding what I wish to achieve out of that. Of course, the number one is always being the compensation, right? The salary, the money that you gain. But it's also about what the goals, the accomplishments that you want to achieve. Primarily, of course, that conversation has always been an annual, performance review with your boss. But also internally, I also wish to reflect, what have I gained from this position and what have I not gained, as well. And that's what led me to, venture and look into other possibilities to help me to strengthen, what my contributions are in the job scope. And so that is when I actually stumbled upon learning, about characteristics and profiling. Because, in the market space, I'm sure you guys have heard about, Myers-Briggs, MBTI, or DISC profiling. Those are the things, some even companies, corporate MNCs, have actually started to use on their onboarding as well, just to see, how will you able to cope into the corporate culture. And so, as I actually branched into it, that's when I realized there's another personality profiling as well. And that's when I stumbled upon, Dr. Bernard Yeo, that's under the UCMHP Academy. And that was actually during the pandemic time. Pretty much, we're pretty much stuck, within indoors. We can't go anywhere. And so that's pretty much, I took the opportunity to learn that through him on the Zoom sessions. And from there, I actually branch out and pursue further to understand, how his method of understanding, our own characteristics and traits, be able to uncover our hidden talents, potentials, and also managing both our strengths and weaknesses as well. And so that's when I actually progressed to learning from the fundamentals and end up, getting a master analyst, out of that as well. So since then, I've pretty much been, working with him as well under this, and also a part-time, consultant, uncovering, helping people to understand better about themselves from this. And his method is pretty much, nomology based. So for those who are not very familiar with nomology, it's actually a very ancient technique. But of course, different schools of thoughts have different methods of, using numbers to actually calculate. And of course, later I'll show you how his method is basically derived as well. And of course, through that also, I have worked on to become a certified trainer as well. But not just, for this field, but also, in my previous corporate world as well, because pretty much I've been doing a lot of presentations, training customers and all that. So I felt, as one of those certified under HRDC, will be able to help to enhance my profile. But at the same time, also realize, a lot of things because it's interactions with people. And that's when I felt, one of the ways to be able to rise up and be able to, have a better engagement is actually to add in an additional skill set, and that's through coaching. And so I actually participated, took on the course, with Corporate Coach Academy, and under their certified associate coach, the level introductory and understanding, how coaching actually helps, not just to empower ourselves, but also to empower others as well. And so this actually begins my journey. And of course, in the meantime, as I worked on this, I'm also interested in other aspects as well. And primarily through metaphysics, I have studied pretty much a few teachers, such as Dr. Joey Ya, Sifu Jesse Lee, and of course, much younger days, that was under Lillian too as well. So, the things that kind of interest me, because these are the things that, help me to actually understand a little bit better about, what, I tend to face when it comes to, certain situations in life as well. But of course, the things that, through metaphysics is subjective, whereas, through numerology and personality profiling is a bit more on the psychological and also on the spiritual and emotional acumen as well. So we'll go into a bit detail on that one. Okay. So of course the question is, character profiling, or in general, what is actually the personality assessment? It's more about understanding your own talents, right? What is your purpose in life and your life's character, know yourself. A lot of times, we don't really know ourselves because, when we go through the education system, we stumble and we learn. Pretty much everything is thrown to us. So we never actually uncover, what is our potential, what is our talent, until we do it, what we call as a trial and error, right? So we go attend certain course or certain class subjects, we pick up certain things like, piano lessons or arts and etc. to discover whether we have that type of skills or creativity and so forth. But, through personality and character assessments, it's actually help us to uncover, what our interests is as well. But more importantly, what is actually inherent in us when we are, born into this world. And so one of the things is, pretty interesting also is about uncovering the emotional intelligence, which is your IQ. And then one of the things when you actually go through and understand your character profiling, you have a better clarity in terms of, what you want to pursue. And of course, your intention in whatever you want to achieve, whether it's going to be in business or in your career or in your wealth or investments pursuit and so forth. So as we go through this and understand better, the most important fundamentally is really understanding your character traits, right? Because every year, we go through life's experience very much differently as we age. But of course, our character is pretty much with us and fixed. And so if we understand that much earlier on, it'll actually help us to be able to face any challenges and issues in life much better. And so that is one of the things, a lot of personality assessment out there, especially when they're basically psychology based, they're more in tune towards, understanding what is your personality and traits. And those are actually snapshots of your emotion and mental state at that time. So of course, yes, it will reveal your strength and weaknesses as well. But if you actually take those assessments, let's say this year, your answers will probably be different from, let's say, you take it pre-pandemic, 3 years ago, for example, or maybe 3 years down the road. And that's because also, our behavior, our thought pattern process tends to change over time, but our character does not. So that's one of the difference between a lot of the personality assessments out there versus what we can actually reveal through the character profiling in numerology. So what I'm showing here on this picture is there's actually quite a lot of personality assessments out there in the market. Okay, just the show of hands, right? How many of you have heard of NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming? Just type a 1 in the chat just to see anybody here have heard of that. Okay, good. So neuro-linguistic programming (LLP) is also one of the ways to actually help us to uncover, our character traits, and also part of the personal development field as well. And essentially, through audio and also mental state of programming our mindset, right? And the other things that I also indicated here is Petrel 16 personality factors, right? The MBTI, as I mentioned earlier. Enneagram as well. I'm sure some of you have heard of that. Ocean 5, and of course, the more popular one, DISC. And what we actually have developed through Dr. Bernard's Yeo method is the Pythagoras characteristic development theory. And I'll show that later on. And so actually this method encompasses all of them. So the benefit of really understanding through his approach is actually uncovering everything at once, rather than, for example, if you just take the DISC profiling, then you only know the DISC methodology, right? So, but then again, you do not encompass the other ways of assessing and understanding your character. Whereas, the method that here is pretty comprehensive, which is one of the reasons I, like and study under him as well. So one of the things that we show under numerology is that it is not a superstition. And because, in sometimes some people abstain from, metaphysics study when it comes to, personality and also character assessment, is because there's a lot of cultural taboo that's involved as well. And so for us here, it's really, there's none. Right, so it's very scientific, and later I'll show you that as well. And of course, like I said, there is no cultural stigmas and taboo. Basically, numerology started, pretty much understanding through the astrology, and of course, different schools, the Eastern or Western, have ways of interpreting. Of course, the Western way will be through, the horoscopes, and then the Eastern way, whether it's going to be the Indian numerology, Chinese numerology, and so forth. So whereas the method that we're here, uncovering more on the scientific profiling method, whereby it is really more on the statistical based. So that means, the data that is actually captured through your date of birth and then analyzed, is actually more accurate than simply what is based on what was actually being covered in the past. So there is actually that mathematical evidence that is shown to prove on the next slide how we actually derive this. And of course, the reporting that comes out of this is going to be instantaneous. So essentially, how we determine this is very fast and it's very predictable, right? Of course, we're talking about numbers is from, 1 to 9. But it's not just reading, just that 9 numbers. There's also many factors and layers that we can build upon as well. And through this, actually, we get a very accurate reading about a person's, characters, traits, both strengths and weaknesses, and in terms of what are their hidden potentials, talents as well. And all of this, has been captured because, like I said, it's scientific and statistical based data that Dr. Bernard Yeo has actually, have compiled through all his research in over many years. And of course, all of this is now under the big data analytics as well. So that's how we are able to generate the report much faster, instantaneously. So before I jump into, how exactly we derive our method, when you talk about numbers, right, it's pretty much everywhere, right? Not just your data, but of course, it's also your IC, your phone number, your address, right? Even your license plate, And here's sort of interesting part, I think about 2 weeks ago, where the JPJ, which is actually the Ministry of Transport in Malaysia here, actually opened up an auction for people to bid for special license plates. An interesting part is that, people actually bid as high as what I'm shown here, close to 1 million ringgit, right, for the license plate FF9. Now, quite interestingly, according to her, this is the entrepreneur who bid for it. FF actually stands for her deceased pet dog. And then, she loved the number 9 as well. That's why she bid. Although, unfortunately, she didn't get it because she was outbid, as you can see there, right? But even so, it shows that, people's very emotional when it comes to numbers, and their attachment to it is very strong. And one of the interesting thing I also was thinking, why is it FF? Why does the JPJ want to launch this? Because they say it marks their 77th anniversary. So the thing is, if you look at the FF and you do a mirror image, it's actually 77. So that is also the reason why, they park it as an FF. So you can translate from alphabet to a number and vice versa. And that's very interesting when I think about it. And through the auction, they're able to generate close to 34 million ringgit. So what this shows is that, numbers to people are very sentimental, but also in a way, when you look at it, it's also a form of energy, right? Because the way that people are actually entangled in terms of the money involved to it, the vibrational frequencies as well. And of course, it's part and parcel of our life, right? And if we have a choice, like, bidding for a special license plate or choosing your phone numbers, or even your addresses or which level in your condo unit and so forth, right, will actually, have a better impact on your life as well. That is why, there's another field where people are able to offer that kind of services as well. So understanding them actually will be able to help you to, enhance your life. And of course, when we talk about enhancing your life, this is where understanding the numbers through numerology has a better significance than just through a cultural or emotional attachment. So let's take a look at how this is actually derived. So for today's agenda, we'll talk about the character profiling through the UCA methodology. So under the UCMHP, which is a universal character method of human profiling, they came up with the universal character archetype, UCA method, to determine, your characteristics potential. So if any of you actually have, other, for example, Chinese metaphysics background, it's a way more similar to your day master as well, right? One single number or character that actually defines you from the day of your birth. But from the numbers here is more universal, and that captures your personal characteristics for that matter. And of course, I'll go through an exercise for you to actually very quickly calculate your UCA. And of course, through that UCA, I'll be able to, explain what are unique characteristics, what are your abilities? And of course, how do we apply this in your career or in your business? And I think that's the reason why a lot of people are joining this, because understanding, how that has a good impact on your life. And of course, the interesting part also about character profiling is that uncover your hidden talents. What are you actually good at as well? And of course, what I want to also be able to pull in terms of one's clarity of your mind and also of your motivation. Because when you actually have a better assessment, of who you are, the most important thing is that are you actually clear of what you wish to pursue in life? What's your goals and objectives? And as well as tie in with your motivation to succeed. And that's very important because a lot of times when, you go for some of these assessments, even as DIC profiling, we tend to fall into the negative mindset. We felt there is a lack the scarcity when it comes to a certain skill set or a certain lack of focus or skill that we have there. And we tend to actually become obsessed of that. But what we need to actually achieve is a better clarity, because there is no perfect human being, right? Everyone has their strength, everyone has their weaknesses. The question is, how do you manage it? And actually, when you have that clarity of your mind, then you'll be able to, enhance your strength and of course, manage your weakness as well. And of course, finally, what's next, once you have a general understanding of your character profiling. So let's begin. So as I mentioned earlier, the 9 UCA, it actually stands for 9. Of course, the numbers 1 to 9, Universal Character Archetype. So this is actually a character assessment tool that was founded by Dr. Bernard Yeo from the UCMHP Academy. And it's actually designed for 21st century assessment. So one of the things that are very different from, all the personality assessment out there is that those are more questionnaire based, right? We also impart some of those questionnaire based just to get a sense and a snapshot of your emotional and mental state. But more importantly, this is calculated through your date of birth, because after all, your date of birth defines who you are from the moment you're born. And how this is actually determined is actually through the Pythagoras characteristic development theory. So this is a very calculated mathematical way of uncovering your human psyche. And he actually able, after thousands and thousands of reading, achieve over 90% accuracy as compared to other personality profiling system out there. So this is actually quite good, when it comes to, like I said, what I've shown earlier in terms of those that have been available in the market space. So this is something new, of course, and he has developed it for the past, several decades in Singapore. And, what we will learn here very quickly is identify your unique characteristics and your abilities and how you actually apply this in, whether you are now a business or an entrepreneur or you're actually working, so to enhance your career. And of course, we don't have time, but this also can help your children to discover their potential at an early stage. So this, the only system in the world that can actually self-assess, a child, even as young as, 6 months, right? Because after all it does is actually take your time of birth and be able to, discover what is the potential there. While all the other assessments out there, right, is more questionnaire based. So you actually have to reach a certain, maturity before you be able to be assessed. And then, of course, we'll be able to analyze everything else that you wish to pursue, outside of business or career, such as, your investments or your health, your wealth, and relationship as well. So because of a time constraint, we'll be able to go into all those other factors. So I'm just going to focus on just the business and the career aspects for now. Okay. So these are the 9 characteristics profiles. So the first one, number 1, is actually the research-based innovator. And then the second one will be the diplomatic communicator. Number 3 will be the action-oriented taskmaster. And number 4, strategic administrator. And then the center number, which is the 5, right? We call it the principal developer. And then the next 4 will be the righteous protector. Number 6. Number 7 is problem-solving entrepreneur. Number 8 will be the disciplined taskmaster. And number 9 will be the business-minded creator. So why do we call these, with the specific names, right? It's just because they actually display unique traits for those numbers. So once we actually derive your UCA based on your date of birth, then we will be able to understand better, who you are as a person. So let's begin and finding out what is your UCA. Now for that, I will require everyone to take out your a pen and also a paper to write out. But if you're very good in math, then of course you can also do this inside your head. or even on your phone, things like that, on your iPad as well, not a problem. But it'll be easier if you actually have a paper and a pen to write this out. So the first thing is, of course, identify your date of birth. So for example, here, the date of birth is going to be 16th of September 1923. So the date is going to be 16. The month, will be 09. And then the year of birth will be 1923. So you're going to write down your date of birth as such, right? So if it's going to be January, of course, it'll be 01. If it's going to be October, it will be 10. If it's December, it will be 12, and so forth. Okay? So the first step is write down your date of birth. Okay, just to make sure that everyone is ready before we begin, can we type a 2 so that we can move on? Okay, good. I see everyone has a 2 now. Okay, so let's start off first with your date of birth, right? So as an example here, this is 16. So in numerology, if you have heard, usually we want to reduce to a single digit, right? So how do we do that is we add them together. So 1 plus 6 will be 7. Okay? So for your date of birth, let's say it's going to be, 01. So that will be 0 plus 1, it will be 1. If it's going to be 10, 1 plus 0 will still be 1. Okay? Now, if let's say your number is going to be 23, 2 plus 3 equals to 5. But if let's say it's going to be 1 and 9, right? Then you get 10. But 10 is 2 digits, so you have to reduce further. So 1 plus 0 and ends up with 1. Okay? So just to make sure that everyone understands and very clear, okay, let's see if I have any questions. James is asking, what about 19? Yes. So as I mentioned, so when 1 plus 9, right, your result will be 10, right? 1, 0. But as I said, in numerology, we always reduce the single digit because the fundamental has always been 1 to 9. So 1 plus 0, okay, becomes a 1. So you reduce it to that. Is that clear? Is that clear, Janice? So for example, let me say 29, right? So 2 plus 9. Okay, what do you get? You actually get 11. And again, we will reduce it further. So that means 1 plus 1 becomes a 2. Okay? So just to make sure that everyone understands the date before we begin, let's type a 3 just to make sure we're ready to move on. Okay. Good. Now, we go to the month of birth. So for this example, it's going to be in September. So you write 09. And then same thing, the method is 0 plus 9, which is 9. So your answer will be 9. Okay. Of course, in a year, you only have 12 months. So if let's say for October, November, December, same thing. So if let's say October, you have 1 plus 0, then it becomes 1. November is 1 plus 1, becomes a 2. And then December is 1 plus 2, becomes a 3. Okay? If I have everyone write a 4, just to make sure that we are ready to move on to the year of birth. Okay, good. So I see everybody has typed in a 4 here. Now, for the year of birth, in other schools of numerology, they only take the last 2 digits. But here, we actually take the full year. Why? Because we want to take into consideration the century. Some people are born in the 19th century, some people are born 20, some people are born in the 21st century, right? Of course, nowadays we look at the 20th and the 21st century. So that is why we keep 19 or the 2000s onwards. So for the year, which is 19, same thing. You take a 1, you add a 9, that is a 10, right? Now, 1, 0, you add 1 plus 0, it becomes a 1. So you reduce the single digit and the answer is 1. Similarly, for the last 2 digits of the year, 2 plus 3. So that becomes a 5. Okay. So for the year of birth, your number becomes 1, 5. Does that make sense? If it does, please type a 5 so we can move on. Okay, good. So far, I think everyone is clear. Now, what you have done is you have reduced your date of birth to 4 numbers. Okay, so in a way, you can call this similar to the Chinese 八字, but here it's more on just the 4 numerical numbers, right? Instead of the 8 characters. But just not to confuse everyone here, I just want to give us a comparison. So we'll now move on. As I said, in numerology, we always reduce the single digits. So now we have here, for example, the 4 digits, and I'm sure you guys have your own based on your date of birth. We will now reduce further. So for the day and month of birth, right, we add them together to becomes a single digit. So example here, 7 plus 9. So the total is 16. Now, you take the 1 and you take the 6. You add them together, it becomes a 7. Okay? Does that all make sense? And go ahead and add out your numbers as well. And if you're ready, type a 6. Okay, good. So now, similarly, for your year of birth, right? You have a 1 and a 5 here as an example. You take 1 plus 5 becomes a 6. Okay, so you are now reduce the 2 digits to 1. So you end up from 4 to 2, which is now the 76. Now go ahead and calculate for your own date of, year of birth, right? And when you're ready, type a 7. Great. Now we're ready for the final stage or the final step, which is basically take those 2 numbers again, you add them up to achieve your final number, a single digit. So 7 plus 6 is actually 13. So 1 plus 3 becomes a 4. Okay, so go ahead and add yours, and when you're ready, type an 8. Great, good. So what we did is that we have actually calculated your universal character archetype based on your own date of birth. Now, why is this called the characteristic Pythagorean development theory from Dr. Bernard Yeo is that it is similar to Pythagoras theorem, right? Whereas you add the 2 sides square equals to the length of the longest one. But here, because it's symmetrical, right, you're actually reducing it down to 1 single digit. And so therefore, this will represent your UCA number. So everyone, remember your number here as I'll actually go through and explain to you what are your characteristics and your personality, as well as how do you apply them. Okay, so as I've shown earlier, right, the 9 UCA profiles. Number 1 is characterized as the research-based innovator. So the characteristics for the research-based innovator is that you are a very independent person. Why is that so? Because number 1 is the first number, which is also represents the first human, right? And therefore, you are very independent, right? As an independent person, you tend to take lead, right? And of course, being yourself, you will always, come up with ways to do things. So you're very innovative. And of course, after, we have people coming along, then you tend to be very influential type to others because you have so much ideas, you have so many things to share, and of course, you are also perceived as a very compassionate person. right? Now, who here is a number one? Please type a one. No one? Okay. So no worries, because one of the things that I want to see is if this actually makes sense to you. So since there's no one here with the number one, I will still continue to actually go through this. So this is basically a very generic reading on in terms of person with a UCA1. And how do you actually apply this in either the business and your career is that from a business perspective or as an entrepreneur, right? You know very well that you are very independent and very influential. So that is where you need to take charge, right? But oftentimes, because there's so many things going on, when running a business, or you tend to lose focus. So the most important thing in order to be successful for UCA number one is to have focus, right? That means clearly define, what's your business targets on an annual basis or quarterly basis, right? And have a business foresight. What do you want to forecast in terms to what you want to achieve for the next quarter or the next year and so forth? How do you want to expand your business? How do you want to increase into a different market scope and all of that? So if you don't have a business, then you'll forever be stuck in the operational side, running the day-to-day routine. And that can be tiring for number one. So it's very important that, you have a very clear focus. And to actually grow your business is also to build relationship and trust, not just with your customers, but also with your, let's say your business partners, right? Your the people that you work in the ecosystem. So that is why it's very important that you have this kind of traits whenever you are a UC1 to be successful. Because a lot of times, when you actually lose sight, like you lack focus, that is when you actually get trapped and you become emotionally stressed or physically tired. And then, of course, you will also lack your commitment to build that relationship to grow your business further. And for career-wise, right, we tend to be more trustworthy, self-rewarding, helpful, humble, and take initiative. So what this means is that because you're very independent, people can trust you as well, that you can do the things on your own, right? But at the same time, you also look for acknowledgement or credit from others. So to be successful in your career, you have to sort of give yourself a self-reward. Oftentimes, your boss may not praise you, and that's okay. Don't take it as if the boss doesn't understand or your boss doesn't care about you. It doesn't. You have to, tell yourself you've done a good job. It's okay. You move on. But at the same time, also because you're very independent, you have to also reach out and be helpful to your colleagues as well to your customers. So naturally, to be successful in a career-wise, we always advise people, number one, to be humble, right? In the relationship, and as well taking initiative to grow and be so that, you'll be able to be promoted and seen as someone who is very respected and very independent. And therefore, your hidden talents is actually being a natural leader, okay? Because you'll be able to do all that, whether you're, as the sole boss in a business or actually a leader in management. For number two, because like I said, after the first man, Adam, comes the second one is a woman. So with two people, of course, number two is all about a communicator. So it's a very diplomatic communicator, someone who wants to talk. And of course, someone who wants to talk tends to express himself or herself, everything, both, what's in her, his state of mind, how he or her feels, everything. So this type of person, can be seen as very charismatic, can be seen as very social because always wants to engage people, always want to talk to people, and of course, very diplomatic as well. So to be successful in a business for a person with a UCA2, right, you have to make the right negotiation or deal making, right? So let's say you're in a sales or you're in a service line, this is a very strategic for you to be able to grow and expand. But most importantly, because you talk a lot eloquently, at the same time, you can also piss off people as well. So that's why usually we tell UCA2 to always speak virtuously, right? Sometimes because you talk too much, you tend to sway to the gossip side, or, like I said, being overly direct, and you can offend others as well. So always speak virtuously, and then you, of course, grow and be successful in your business. From a career perspective, because you talk very eloquently, you are advised to be a presenter, right? Someone to come up on stage to be able to talk, like a salesman, or a presenter, a teacher, educator, right? Or a sell, your products and services. But the other important thing is that as you actually communicate with people, right, you have to avoid being a flip-flop or indecision, right? You make sure that what you say, you will do it, right? Do what you preach, in other words, right? Instead of saying something and you cannot commit to. And that is where a lot of times we see people with number 2 fail, because they overpromise and underdeliver. So avoid that. And we always tell them to be logical instead of emotional, because every time you talk, there's a lot of emotions going on. You tend to be charged, but always stay to the factual and stay of calm. And therefore, for number 2, you tend to be a natural negotiation. So wherever you are, right, whether you're going to be in the business or career, you can always talk your way out, right, or close the deal, or, build up that friendship or relationship with people. So what you want to achieve, that is where you can do it. And always remember, the good side and the bad side. When we say natural negotiator, you can also be a natural offender, right? You can also say things too overly direct and offend people. Okay. So in the interest of time, I will try to speed up a bit more. Okay, for the number 3, right? So now we have 1, 2, which is a dialogue already. Now the third one comes in. Okay, they will come to execute. So that's why we see the third person here is more of an action taker, right? So that means, someone that will be able to do what the first person has research done and base. The second person say what is needed to do, and there's the third person will come in and take action. So the person with the UCH3, you have a sense of urgency. And that's for, because you take action, people will see you as reliable, because of course you do it, do the things so well. And, because you're taking action, people always perceive you energetic. But the thing is, sometimes also when you overwork yourselves, overstress yourselves, you can also be stressed out as well. So usually we tell people here to do it at your pace, right? That means don't rush too much. Sometimes, yes, there will always be challenges and there will be deadline, but, plan and execute. We always tell, once you plan well, you'll be able to execute, because you have that urgency to take things and do it well. So that's why in business, usually because we know that you can do it well, what you need to build upon is really your social skills, right? You tell people that, you can do it, but you also need to improve on your communication. That is why we say, you need to be less emotional about it, right? And then you need to exude confidence, because you can do it, but then, people doesn't know. So, you need to show that confidence so that people will give you the task, right? Give you that sense of responsibility to do it. And for a career perspective, right? Because, you very operation, you get the things done. In order to be successful here, you need to be less demanding of yourself, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with saying you have a high expectation and you want to demand further, but sometimes you tend to burn yourself out. So there's always that balance for, what we call the work-life balance, right? Look for that, right? Because sometimes you tend to be overly workaholic. But at the same time as well, we always tell you to be enthusiastic. That means instead of just doing concurrently all the routine stuff, you want to be, be enthusiastic to your boss. You say you want to take on something challenging, something new, right? So that you don't feel monotonous, and start to lose interest and be bored as well. So your hidden talents here is actually you're an operator, right? You get things done, right? You'll be able to get things done, but improve it as well. So your talent here is when you actually work on the process, work on the systems, you identify the strengths and the weaknesses, and you be able to improve upon that. So when you tell that to your boss or you yourself in a business, help to improve your business sense, that is when, you'll be able to work on those and improve. So things that you can delegate, right? Do delegate so that you don't burn out, and things that you can work on to improve, that is where, your drive will come in. So for number 4, it's going to be strategic administrator. So you see that the person 1 has developed, the idea, the tool, will talk about it. The third one, we're going to work on it. The fourth one is basically administration. So by administration, basically means the processes, right? Yes. Okay, so we know this needs to be done. Can we develop a process? Can we do things this way? So fourth, you see when the number 4 tends to be very self-disciplined because of that. So that's why I said they're very good at planning, develop the processes and all that, dependable, and have a very structured thinking. So you're very methodical in whatever you do, right? So whether it's going to be on something that's very critical, scientific, or even on the creative side, you'll be able to plan how you want to achieve that as well. Now, from a business perspective, right, we always tell people that, because you're very administrative type, you tend to be very bossy. So you want to be able to protect your employees' interests as well, right? So you want to make sure that you're not overly micromanaging them, right? You want to be able to show that you are also street smart, and you want to empower them, right? And not just saying, you become very egotistical as a boss as well. So key point here is all about building relationship, because you're very good at what you're doing, but other people need to catch up, to your expectation. So learn to work with them, right? And then you'll be very well in business. Similarly for career, we always tell to protect your employees' interests. So that means, your boss has a certain expectation, right? Now, in order to be successful as an administrator in your career, in your job, you need to understand what is your boss looking for. Sometimes, you may need to get better clarity, seek for better understanding. What is your KPI? What is the way to approach? What do you want the outcome out of it? Then you'll be able to do it. Because otherwise, you just do it because, what your boss tells you, and the outcome may not be what the boss expected. So no doubt that you're very meticulous, you're able to develop it. But if the things are not aligned, then it will be very stressful for you. So that is why your hidden talent is, you're a very workaholic person, whether you're in a business or career, but you need to actually enhance your strength by actually also working with people. That is when, you're not seen as a loner, and also be able to build that closer relationship. Okay, for number 5, because we remember, right, there are 9 numbers. So 1 to 4 and then 6 to 9. 5 sits in the middle. So 5 is a very interesting character. We call it as a principal developer. They are seen to be very filler with a very strong moral sense. So they are, because they already developed, right? So they've seen the processes that have been done, that has been planned, right? They want to improve further on it. So they're able to strategize and execute, right? And seen more as a practical person to do things. So in business sense, what we say is that, you actually have something that is existing, something that you are working on. You want to take a very calculated risk when you approach your business, especially, in terms of dollars and cents, sales revenue, right? Oftentimes, you because you're a developer, you might end up taking some risk. So therefore, we advise you to be more pragmatic. There's nothing wrong with taking risks. You just want to make sure it's a calculated risk, right? So that, you work on a more predictable outcome for your business to grow in. And therefore, then people around you will be seen as a trustworthy, boss. Now, for career-wise, because, you are seen as someone that is able to strategize and execute very well, oftentimes, we tell people to be more humble because, like I said, your expectation is there, but others may not feel that way. So you have to be more focused in terms of what you're doing rather than just doing it on your own, right? by having a clear focus and be responsible, that is where you actually take into consideration others, people like your boss expectation, your colleagues' inputs, and collaboration and all that. And that is when you'll be able to manage your stress and emotions. Because if you just do it on your own, then you become very stressful. Because naturally, you want to be very objective about it. So your talent here is an architect. So if you think about architect, right? Architect design buildings, design this, design that. Now you are able to do that as well. But you want to learn how that your design, right, will actually improve. And not just say I can design, but also how is your design be able to help others? So that is why whether, you know, in your career, having that humility, be able to work objectively, and in a business sense, you know, take a more calculated risk in terms of how you want to work on your business is, you know, your hidden talent, your strength to do that. Okay, so next is for number 6. So 6 is actually considered a protector. So from a developer, right, someone that needs to actually protect everything. So you are a very honest person and have a decent sense of duty, right? So in the ways that you choose to help everyone around you, and then of course, these are the type of people we've seen is always involved in activism, or if your family is very important to you and all that. Now, the thing about a protector is that they're very charismatic, right? Because you're seen as a natural leader, you're seen as a protector. So on a business aspect, you must learn how to manage your assets well, right? So you can't simply feel that, oh, okay, you want to be charitable, then you start to give away, or you start to be loose about certain things. But at the same time also, you know, a protector can be very frugal as well. So that is why we tell them to be wise in your decision making. So there are two extremes when we see, you know, in every aspect of a person's character. So it's always important to build that balanced relationship in a business. For a career aspects, right, usually we tell them to take initiative and responsibilities. Why? Because you are seen as someone who is willing to help, right? Someone who has a sense of duty. And therefore, it is always right for you to take on additional initiatives, not additional workload, but more like, you know, something that can actually improve better. Now, when you're ready, of course, then we say take on the responsibilities, because that comes naturally, right? After you have shown and demonstrated your capabilities to your boss. So most important thing is that usually a protector tends to be very judgmental. So you want to be less critical and controlling in doing and working with people. So that is why, you know, it's always important to be helpful. And so your hidden talents always be natural caregiver. That means you want to be able to be there to be supportive, to care for others, and, you know, willing to help others to achieve the same success as you do. So for 7, we call it as a problem-solving entrepreneur. Why is that? Because number 7 is seen as a very resourceful person, right? Someone that is able to take things and be able to improve upon it, right? So that means, you know, whatever resources that they have, they will be able to turn it to the something interesting and new. And therefore, we will consider these people as problem-solving type, right? And most interestingly is that because they take everything into consideration, when they do argue, they argue with facts, right? Versus say for the number 2 communicator, they will just keep talking, but then ends up being very emotionally charged. Whereas if number 7, if they do get into that discussion or even argument, they always present their facts, right? So that it's very hard to win if the facts is right. Now, again, like I say, if the facts is right. So there's always a tendency as well if your facts is wrong. And therefore, number 7 people tends to be very dominant because they always tend to think themselves as right. So when it comes to business, it's very important that you are able to manage multiple business segments, right? But when you say managing also, you will have to know what is your strengths and weakness as well in that capacity, so that you don't just simply do everything on your own. Then you'll just burn out, right? You'll be completely stressed out. Learn to decide, you know, what you're good at, and then you manage it. And then those that will really be too tiring for you, you can just outsource, hire someone, etc. Things like that. So be very decisive in what you do, right? So that you'll be able to work and appreciate your subordinates better. Then of course, in a career-wise, we see you as a very talented because you're very resourceful. And so that means you are very good in a team and you'll be able to push the boundaries of others people as well. So be very diplomatic about it. And that is when, we will see someone be very successful in their career. And of course, that's why we say number 7, your hidden talent is actually a natural achiever. Why a lot sometimes, you're not able to achieve is because you end up burned out, right? Like I said, you take on too many things, you put on too much stress on yourself, right? That's when you started to feel on a downward spiral and you're not able to do everything right. So take a step back, right? Understand what is your boundaries, right? Work with people, and then you will achieve it. Number 8 is that you're seen as a taskmaster. So that means someone that is very disciplinarian, right? Responsible. And of course, these people are also very judgmental because, they're the one that is overlooking, empowering you, in a sense, also very impatient or very obsessive as well. So they have the good sides because, like I said, these are the people with a very strong sense of civic duty, very serious, and can be able to get things done. But at the same time, if they push too hard, then, other people will feel threatened. So to be successful in a business is really to avoid being confrontational, right? You always want to work in a collaborative or, positive environment. And you always want to take the initiative to do things, but not being a very possessive manner, like telling people to do. So the other way also in a career aspect, which is going to be slightly different, is that because you're seen as a very responsible person, you want to work on it, right? So become a workaholic, but at the same time, you do not want to outcast other people, right? You still want to work very closely with your colleagues or with your customers to make sure that, that everyone's on board, understands, and you'll be able to contribute well to you. So always be seen as someone who's approachable, someone who's sociable and supportive. And then, your career will be shine because your boss realized that you can actually work very well with other people as well. And that is why your hidden talent here, we call it ombudsman. So if anybody doesn't understand the word ombudsman basically means strong sense of ethics, right? So you know very well that naturally people number 8 are like policemen or judges, stands like that. So in a company, they can be the ombudsman. So that means someone who is able to enforce things and get it done, right? So work on that, but make sure at the same time, you want to appear as someone that's sociable, but not too pushy and dictatorial as well. And finally, number 9, right, is basically the last number, which is open-minded, optimistic, and what we call reliable. What is that? Because after everything that's been done, you think of planning, talking, preparation, resource, work management, action taken. The 9 is where we comes in as someone that looks up as a big picture. So that is why people with number 9 here tends to be very open-minded, optimistic. But at the same time, you can also be narrow-minded as well, depending on your state of mind. So that is why important to understand everything that we have discussed today. There is the extremes of both. What I'm showing here is the positive characteristics. They can also be the negatives if you have that emotional negative setback. So to stay positive, especially when it talks about business and career, is that you want to tap into what is your strength. So for the business aspect, right, you are very creative. That means you tend to be work on improving matters. So that means, you have ongoing process. You can do what we call kaizens, continuous improvement, and therefore you'll be seen as very efficient. Now, of course, bosses efficient is good, but the most important thing is that you're not the only one, right? You can't be the only one running unless you are a freelance self-boss, right? So you want to promote productivity with your subordinates as well. Make sure that efficiency is passed down. Make sure that, that process, that thought process, that mindset and innovation is, embedded into your corporate or your business so that, then you will be very successful because you're not the only one running the show. And from the career perspective, right, you want to be seen as a very cultured person, right? Because everybody knows that, okay, you're very optimistic, very reliable, but oftentimes you can also exude stubbornness, right? So when you do that, then people may not see you as that charming or charismatic. So in other words, less egotistical. How? By taking initiative as well. So when you take initiative, basically you want to show leadership. You want to show that you can also work collaboratively with in a teamwork and everything else. So then you will be not seen as an I, but a we person. Okay. So in hidden talent here, we always call this person as a natural groomer. You're able to groom not just yourself, but also other people, to elevate them to a higher purpose and higher productivity and higher standards. So this is why, your talents are, because when you actually help others to improve themselves, they will feel good. You will also feel good. Okay. Now, just to make sure if you are all here, do you want additional bonus? Because I have captured basically what is, basic characteristics, but do you want something more? If you so, type A 2. Okay, good. So the tool that I would like to show here is suitable industries, right? So you know your traits, you know how to apply whether you are working in a business or you're working with someone else in a career. Now, what kind of industries are suitable for you? Okay, so for number 1, right, you tend to be very suitable in finance, right, because you're very good with numbers, hardware, law, legal, jewelry, refine, R&D, and psychology type as well. Now, do bear in mind when I say industries for all of these, right? These are just the snapshot overall industries. When you go into those industries, for example, finance, right? They are very detailed. Are you going to talk about auditing? Are you talking about banking? Are you talking about accountancy, etc., etc.? So, again, some of these job scopes will be better for you, and some will be more tiring. But overall, the industry itself, right, will be profitable or favorable to you. You just need to find which type of job scope, which type of company, or the title, I would say, that is something that will be suitable for you. When I say suitable for you, that means something that you will feel passionate about working in it, right? Rather than something that will stress you out. Okay, for number 2, because you're a talker person, right? Communicator. So therefore, service-based industries is very, very good for you. So you can be doing in selling, in anything, right? And also for insurance and sales, you'll also be very good in that. Internet-based, right? Because you're a very communicator, you can actually also do, for example, online Zoom sessions, right? Webinars, everything that can be done through internet communicating as coaching as well, right? And of course, shipping industries as well. This is where because there's also a lot of logistics that you can communicate on. Water based, that's why shipping is part of that water-based industry. And of course, diplomatic relations, because your ability to communicate very effectively and diplomatically. Now, for number 3, because you're a task person, right, you get things done. That's where advertising can comes in. And of course, you also can work in apparel. You get things shift, stocks inventory done, right? Or you can also be in fashion. You can also do the design part as well. F&B, running the operational side, banking as well, operations side, politics, engineering, so forth. Okay. Now, engineering here is the broad scope of engineering. So because, again, depending on what they're interested in, it could be mechanical, civil, electrical, and so forth. So for number 4, administrative, right? Because they're very administrative based. Of course, naturally, when you think about it, education comes in. And then medical, because there are certain procedures you need to do, right? Woodwork. And then, of course, TCM, same as medical, right? And then landscaping, religion. Religion or ministries is where also it's very administrative at times. So this is where you can also come in as well. Not necessarily mean, like I said, be a monk or pastor, but in the ministry work per se. And then of course property, right? Property is also very administrative to some except sales as a property agent. But that's where I say in that scope you can be doing very well. So for number 5, principal developer, you're more into the developing side, right? So construction, building is definitely very good for you. Also, you can go into mining, and then of course landscaping, and then real estate, and then metaphysics. Metaphysics, why? Because you are able to develop this set of industries. Because again, this is not set in stone. That is why you can actually craft it and do it the way you like it. Service, again, any type of service that you're able to enhance and develop upon, of course, sales. And then for number 6, right, where you consider as a protected type in the automotive industry, that is also very good, and transport as well, because you're able to work on those transportation services and processes as well. Finance, okay, because you're very good at managing assets and numbers, that is also very good. From the engineering side, we see you are better on in the mechanical engineering aspect. And then, of course, we'll talk about legal, medical, and also jewelry aspect. And then number 7, we're talking about broadcasting, right? Because broadcasting is more on the creative side. You can also solve some of the issues as well as things like sales and marketing that's involved as well. Diplomatic relations, right? Sometimes require problem solving. Service, and then of course insurance, right? And then in anything that's internet based as well, you'll be able to be your entrepreneur on that aspect. And then for number 8, advertising, because there's still a lot of processes that you can improve on in terms of the advertising industry, apparel as well. In terms of, for example, like I said, the logistic part, F&B, the operational side, you can get it done. Talent acquisition, talent development, things that you can work on to improve on the task itself. Of course, medical, teaching, you can get things done, teaching very well. It's not necessarily theoretical, but also in the entire processes as well, from the teaching scope and as well as engineering in general. And then finally, business-minded creator, number 9, which is education, right? Because you are also considered an open-minded creator. You take things very in a high level. You'll be able to see where the improvements can come in from an education point of view, from woodwork, and then of course TCM, things that you can work on. That means basically what we're talking here is all about innovations and ways that you can improve on those processes and those fields. And then of course landscaping, religion. Now, religion here, because you can tap into spirituality, so also consider that as a counselor as well, part of that. Property, right? You can also be able to enhance your sale in that aspect, and of course, you can also work very well as a consultant as you manage that. Okay, so that is basically in a nutshell, right? Something that is very favorable for based on your UCA numbers. And again, if you want to go into much deeper, then of course there are ways that we can actually read more closely and identify what is the like I said, the job title and then the scope and all that that will be more favorable to you. But overall, this where we see best suited industries based on your character traits and abilities. Okay. So the one thing that I want to prove here as we, as I've done all this, is to show you that, you actually know your character and your traits, right? And once you've be able to know that, you can actually tap into it and be able to improve your life much better. Oftentimes people don't know what they want. Like I say, oh, I don't know what's my life purpose. I do not know what I'm good at. I do not know this. I do not know that. That is because you never truly understood, or been explained or found out for yourselves, right? What is your hidden talents and potential? And oftentimes, this you go through life is a trial and error. There's nothing wrong to it, But then if you know it much earlier on, you'll be much successful, at this point in time. So that is why we call this as a myth, because there are many methods. Like I said, you don't even need to go into metaphysics. Even the what is the personal assessment out there is already enough to actually show some of your characters and your traits, at least to tell you what is your strength and your weaknesses are. But with the character profiling, right, it actually goes into more scientifically, as the way we mentioned and showed to you. There is no superstition that ties to certain culture or certain aspects, right? And the inaccuracies is because, like I said, when you take those assessments, they are more emotional based, whereas what you calculated here is based on factual, your date of birth. And the character profiling, the word profiling suggests, right, it's very scientific. Okay, so what is the next one that is closest to this is criminal profiling, if you think about it, right? So criminal profiling does the same way, right? They look at all the traits of what this criminal has been done and blah, 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 and then it came up with that characteristics. Similarly is that. So we've proven that character profiling is scientific. Now, there is another type of profiling that is not based on numerology that's also very scientific, just to share with all of you, and that is fingerprint, which is, of course, the criminal profiling comes in, right? They take that, right, and then they analyze it, all the big data, in terms of the characteristics and future, and present to you. And if you ever get a chance to take that assessment, which is very expensive, right, you'll be able to understand yourself, because it goes into, your left brain, your right brain, learning capabilities and all that as well. So that's why we say, the word profiling here is very scientific. And then your talents are found through trial, as I mentioned, because you go through life stages, when you're young, when you're in your early teens and all that, you discover what you're good at and you're good at. So sometimes it can be very frustrating, but with character profiling, it's never a trial and error. We actually prove it to you. Now, of course, what I basically cover here is a very generic one, right? But there is actually many layers to read to actually give you a more accurate sense, okay? And there's only so much you can understand about yourself. This is actually a myth as well, because, just like, for example, every Chinese New Year, right, there is the so-called the year reading, right? There's only one aspect of it. So similarly, like what I'm covering you is only one aspect of it. When you actually did that calculation for your UCA, right, that 4 numbers representing your date of birth, you can also read that as well. What does that mean? Each character, the positions, and so forth. And then we can also expand the readings and further. So it's very, very in-depth, understanding different aspects of your life, right, in terms of your strengths and weaknesses. And of course, lastly, people always say, I don't have good talents, I'm too. So just now what I share with you on the positive side, they can also be the negative side. So you can take both extremes. Like when I say honesty, you can also be deceitful. When I say trustworthy, you can also be scammy, right? So people choose what they want to be, but that is the character trait that you have, right? So that's why I say it's not true. So when some people comes and say it's not true, well, it depends what you want to pick, because you can flip 2 sides of a coin, it is still a coin. So that is why it is a myth. Now, the most important thing I tell people is, if the reading is so simple, that means if I just give it to you 1 to 9, this is the definition, and you go with it, then you do not need me or anybody else. You can just buy a book that explains in detail further. But it's more complex than that, right? That is why, we first need to understand your clarity of the mind and motivation, because if you don't have that sense of focus in terms of what you want to achieve in your life, in terms of what you want to pursue, and then motivate yourself, then obviously you will go down the negative downward spiral, because you only see the bad things about you and not the good things about you. And then especially when people talk about you, then we'll just aggravate further. That is why when you talk about mindset, I always bring in mindset, because that is one of the reasons why I took up coaching as part of it, is because mindset is very important, right? It's to empower yourself to actually overcome that. And of course, there's a mindset coach as well. And whenever I talk about mindset, or people think about mindset, there's always two types of people. Those who think they're very smart, oh, okay, mindset again. Oh, yeah, I already know about mindset. Okay, here we go again, blah, blah, blah. And then someone who thinks, yeah, mindset, I can do that. I can improve on, I can work better. See, mindset is not an actual science, right? Because it really depends on the person. Same thing as you take any personality assessment test out there. Whatever it reveals to you, both your strength and weakness, is also a mindset problem, right? Once you have the clarity of your mind, your motivation will come in. And when that happens, then you know what you want to achieve. And that is why all the characteristics in your trait will actually be very easy for you. It will not be very stressful for you, and other people will not stress you out as well. So to have a very successful mindset, according to Robin Sharma, it's actually four paradigms. One is your mindset, which is your mentality, of course, your psychology. The other two is about your heart set, which is your emotions, right? And then, of course, the health set is physicality, how you want to do it. And then your soul set is spirituality. So a lot of people think mindset is just the mind, but it's actually encompass all of this, because if you don't believe it, if you don't think you can do it, then naturally you will not act on it, right? And then if you don't act on it, naturally you will not achieve the higher level of yourself. So that is why, all of this needs to be in balance. All of this needs to be in order. One cannot be less than another. So what happens here, I want to show is that if, let's say, someone is very emotional, the downward spiral, then you see the emotional set, the heart set, right, will be higher, a bigger piece of pie. And then your physicality will be smaller. So what happens if someone is very emotional, will not want to do what it's like, you don't want to wake up every morning because you don't want to go to work or things like that. Similarly, on the other side, right, if let's say you're downward spiral, you feel very negative, right, you think negatively, then you not feel like, you want to improve spiritually, you'll be able to do things, right? So your spiritual soul set, also the pie will be less and less. That is why it's very important to have a clarity of your mind to be able to achieve that. So if people who thinks they have a fixed mindset, right, they will think I know everything. That is why just now that image on the left, you see that, mindset problem again, talking about this mindset. Whereas someone with a growth mindset, right, is that you'll never learn enough. Life is about a journey, right? No one knows everything about anything and everything. So it's always about, the journey, the growth process. And when you have that enthusiasm to grow, that mindset to grow, that is when you achieve success. But success also comes, when you actually be able to discipline yourself about it. So the other layer also I want to talk about and bring in is that how self-discipline guarantees your self-success. And it's very important because, like I said, your mindset is one thing, but also how you want to act upon it, right? Because through self-discipline, you'll be able to become self-reliant. Oftentimes, if you don't have that self-discipline, you rely on other people to do the work for you, to motivate you, to this and that, right? But you start off first, you rely on yourself because it's all about you. Only you can bring success to you. So the first step is when you realize and rely on yourself, then you can actually move on to the next level, which is called self-persistence. That is when you are constantly realizing, okay, I want to get this, I want to improve on this, and you will constantly be doing that. And how you actually do that is actually you motivate yourself, right? You keep saying, because I want to get this done, because I want to improve my life, blah, 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 then you will find ways to motivate yourself. And once you be able to motivate, move on with that momentum, you carry on and continue to improve. That is when you will actually achieve self-mastery. And self-mastery, right, basically encompasses everything you have done since you started. And that will lead to your self-success, right? Your self-success is all about you and nobody else. Because if you think you can do it, then naturally, you will be able to get it done and also helping others to improve as well. Because people will see you as someone not only as confident, but also someone that can be able to, reach a success platform on your own. And so one of the ways people always say, okay, so how do I be successful? Now that I know my character traits, now I know my strengths and weaknesses, now I know that. It's actually develop SMART goals, right? So what is a SMART goal? maybe I pose a question. And anyone here knows what is the definition of SMART? What does S stand for, M stand for, ART? Can anyone type it in? No one heard of SMART goals? Okay, specific. Yes. So S stands for specific. That means you want to define your goal to be as specific. In other words, I say, I want to lose weight. That is not specific enough. Why? Because it needs to be measurable, right? How many grams you want to, kilograms, I should say, you want to lose weight, right? I want to lose 5 kilograms. Why? Then you go action oriented, right? Because you want to, lose goal for what purpose? And then R is results, right? And then what will be the T is time. Okay, so specific, measurable, action-based, result-oriented, and time-bound. That means you want to get this done within a specific time. If you keep telling yourself you will do this, but there is no time limit, then you'll forever drag it on. That is the importance that you need to develop a SMART goal. And coaching is where we will be able to help you to work on that, because there will always be a sense of accountability. If you simply say that I want to go, but it's not defined purely on a SMART basis, then you will not want to act upon it. Because why? You will not be able to cultivate that positive relationship with other people and yourself as well. Because you no longer see your body as something that you want to improve on, or your mental state or your emotional state. So cultivate that positive thought, positive mindset, positive relationship is very important. And once you'll be able to cultivate that, you'll be able to give it back to others. Success is not about just, you achieving on your own, right? So you have to give it back. Similarly, that's the reason why we also have the National Coaching Weeks, to be able to give back to other people. Or, we do things pro bono, right? Or we volunteer. All of these things, right? Charity, it's all about contributing back to the society, to pay it forward. And once you give that, right, you'll be able to practice gratitude. Now, gratitude is not just a one-time thing, like I said, just this 1 week National Coaching Week, or, you just donate to charity for one time. You have to practice on a daily basis gratitude. What are you grateful for that, you're alive, right? Is it for yourself? Is it for your family? Is it for other people? Why? And what's the reason you want to do it? So when you actually look at this, right, then you'll be able to work on your passions. When you have a goal in mind and you're able to develop that relationship and working with other people, giving back, contributing to society, and be grateful, right, then is where you'll be able to understand your passion very well. See, passion is a very great thing. People always think, if you work on your passion, then the money will come in. Passion is not necessarily a job or a business, right? It can be something that is rewarding for you. It can also be a hobby. But most importantly, if it is, of course, that hobby brings you additional income, then it's even better, right? Now, to tie back into that discipline, okay. I think my slide is stuck. Okay. So basically the SMART goals is where we call the self-discipline. Okay. And self-discipline here is you are the only one that can develop the goal for yourself. You are the ones that control the outcome of your goal. You are the one that decides, when you want to achieve that goal. So it's all about having that self-discipline in doing the goal. And then, of course, your self-reliance is how do you want to build that relationship, right? You do not want to constantly rely on other people to give you that motivation, to give you that happiness, to give you that. It's also you need to contribute towards that. In other words, it's a cohabitual relationship. And then when you're actually able to give to other people, you'll be able to self-motivate, right? Naturally, this is a natural high because when you actually help others, right, you feel good about yourself. And that is why we say, the feeling good about yourself will actually motivate you to do more. And will actually motivate you to do more, that is when, you will actually want to continue with this habit. Because oftentimes, people stop when you actually do it one time. It's no longer a habit. But if you continue doing it, continue to help, continue to give back, that is have its own natural motivation for you. And how do you actually push yourself to have that? Is actually to have a gratitude. Daily gratitude could be a daily journal, right? Or you can just wake up and do what Michelle you always said, she said to herself, thank you, I'm sorry, I love you, and be able to move on with that. So she actually encompassed that every day in terms of moving with your self-persistence. And finally, when you actually work on all these four, right, you'll be able to achieve your mastery of your passions, because you know very well what is your goal, how you want to define it, how you want to develop a relationship, how you want to continuously motivate yourself, and how do you want to be, working to improve that. So because of the time constraints, I will not go into that exercise. But again, I think you guys have already written out, okay, what is your UCA? What is the characteristics and the abilities that is tied to it? And how it actually helps to, increase your success in both your business and your career as well. Now, the thing that we didn't do is actually talk about how the hidden talents can help you to achieve your clarity and also your self-discipline. So this is where, you're going to take away and make sure that you work on it, because once you have that clear focus, right, that is when you'll be able to do it, take the initiative, take the action to improve further. Okay, so what's next is basically, it's very simple, is that, a lot of times the consultation, the reading is very generic because, like I said, it's only limited. So I can actually extend further, right, in terms of giving you a full 2-hour consultation that covers, what's the characteristic traits and talent deeper. And like I said, this is just a one-dimension reading, which is your UCA. We can also read every single aspects in terms of your strengths and weaknesses, right? And then understanding all the major profile systems are included as well. So we'll tell you, what is the NLP learning for you as well, so that you can be able to incorporate that. And of course, I'm giving you some analysis to work on your career, your business, health, wealth, and relationships, what to look out for, improve on, avoid, etc. And of course, one of the things when you talk about numbers, we always also want to look about your outlook, right? So this is where the consultation also includes the 9-year outlook. Now, a lot of people ask, why 9 years? That is because the cycle repeats every 9 years. Like I said, number starts from 1 to 9, and after that, it reverts back to 1. There is no 0 because 0 is void. 0, no value, right? So in numerology, and of course in all schools, right, we always see that 0 carries no significance. But spiritually wise, yes, because, when you actually achieve that level, flower state, right, you'll be able to, gain a universal picture of everything. But that's another story to tell. Okay. So basically what it is a full consultation report analysis on everything that I have shown here. And then this includes a personalized one-on-one coaching for 2 hours. So basically you can ask anything that you want into deeper detail as I explained and give you that full report. And of course, the bonus here is because as I mentioned, I want to layer in and give you something extra. So because, I have also additional metaphysics background, right? And also I want to, give you guys asking me, anything that you want to ask about metaphysics, if that interests you, right? And of course, the other thing is also on date selection. So like I said, numbers carries a very strong vibrational energy. So you want to pick the right dates to do certain things, which is the reason why after all people pick the dates for weddings, right? People pick the dates for product launches or company IPOs, etc. So this is where I'll actually give you the 3 dates that are favorable, the months within the 3 months that are favorable to you as well. And the questions can be tied to the date selection or not. It's up to you, okay? So the promo price here for the NCW is actually 197 net, right? So, and this is one of the things I want to be clear as well, is that it's only for basic requests because, for example, if you ask me about, wedding date selection, that will not be covered because I need to also look at your, say, the groom of the bride's date of birth as well. So we need to do a compatibility match, and that is why it's additional work. Whereas this is more focused on a one-on-one, just on you itself. So that's why the focus is just more on, what is the things that you want to do for yourself to improve on, or, things that are outside of that, will be additional. Okay. And then, of course, also I do cover other services as well, also in metaphysics. So I do the achievement destiny reading, which is basically a different side of, reading your characteristics and personality traits, forecasting. So in other words, if you want to know, whether some actions are favorable to you or not, there's also something I can cover. Of course, spiritual achievement as well. So just something that about life outlook, dream interpretation, and all that, right? And then, of course, date selection from a metaphysics standpoint, that is outside of just now the bonus. So basically, what does date selection mean? Date selection means, you want to identify your personal favorable dates. And that's very important, right? You want to know that the dates that are good for you to do things. And you, also, if you say want to pick important historic dates, for example, weddings, company launches, IPO launches, etc., these will require a lot more work to analyze, right? That's why I said the selection for more historic days will come in here. And of course, also, if you want to know what is the bad dates you want to avoid, right? Whether it's maybe traveling, dating, marriage, etc., and all that. Also, I can tell you that as well. And then, of course, this is more on a a la carte basis because this is, a question type reading. So, whether you can do it on a short 30-minute or even a 60-minute outcome, it's up to you. Then you can decide on that. So usually a lot of consultants out there, they charge more, but, for NCW, I want to reduce the price because this is not a topic I covered today. So that's why, the price is there, but in case you're interested. And then, of course, also just now I showed, the reading. You can also provide you your personal manual blueprint. So that means your manual, your profiling manual, right, is actually close to 100 pages written. So you do not need me to actually do analysis for you. You can actually purchase it. That has detailed characteristics and everything included, right? So this one is basically a report that's generated by my mentor, and that's why the price is much higher. It's because it's actually coming out from their system. Okay, so, and one of the things that I want to give away to everyone who attended today is basically a free basic UCA report. So this free report, right, basically will be about 6 pages long, and then what it will cover is basically, your strengths and also your weaknesses, and also what are the interesting patterns and notes for you to be looking to in your job role as well. So I will send this out to you, right? There's actually a link for you to fill up, and then please do take the initiative to get this free report for you. And if you want to share this with other people as well, I'm okay with it, but the thing is that since they didn't attend, they wouldn't understand the numbers as well, but it's still okay. I think, as long as you want to share, you let them feel first, what is this character profiling reading is all about. And then if you're ready, then we can do the consultation. Okay. So with that, like I said, we come to the end of it. So I'm going to post the link here on the chat group as well. So please, take a look at it. The consultation begins in June. So the 2 hours, as I mentioned earlier, let me know if you have any questions. And then, of course, click on the link as well to claim your free report, and then fill it out, your details. And there's supposed to be some questionnaires for you to fill, just to get a feel as well from mental, emotional aspects as well. And feel free to actually connect with me. There's also the QR code to scan on WhatsApp, or you can drop me an email as well. I give you my short personal email rather than my official company email, which is too long. So this is much easier. Okay. So with that, I thank you very much for attending, and I pass it back to Esty.
Hi guys. You like the sharing today? Give me a yes. Your thumbs up. Yes. Good job, Wesley. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for sharing. Can we take a photo?
Sure.
Still, then we will charge you for the photo. And we will
memorable
and then Wesley also will touch
NCW.
it.
Yeah.
Wesley, while she's trying to do the photo, just one question.
Sure.
You know, the
Any questions?
triangle, the triangle you showed. Let's say it's a mirror image. Numbers come out. Does it mean something?
Yes, it does. So think of it as like a bipolar, right? Someone with bipolar disorder is the same thing. So without going into too much detail on that, that is basically what it means. So someone will having internal struggle, in short. So it doesn't mean they have bipolar problem, but they have internal struggle. So if we be able to help them to identify what those struggles are, then they're okay.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Any
Nice
other
to see some
questions?
faces.
Oh, yes.
Wesley, sorry. Wesley, I just have a question. What happened if they are twins who share
Yes,
the same
very
birthday?
good
Yeah,
question. Yes. So if
because
they
I
are
have.
good. No, thank you, Susan, for asking that question. So actually, we also consider twins, triplets as well. That basically means that we will actually take into consideration their date of birth, right, with their parents' date of birth. Okay, so that means, let's say the first twin will add the father's date of birth, the paternal side. Second twin that comes out, we add the mother's date of birth, the maternal side. The third twin, right, will add their grandparents' date of birth. Okay, so triplets. Now, according to my mentor, he has not have sufficient data to do a quadruplet. So right now, let's just stick to the triplets yet. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So anyone else want to on the camera? Come on.
Tina has a
Carol.
question about the link for free report. Right? Let's okay, let me see if I can type that out. So basically, it's gonna be bit.ly/free UCA report.
Shall we take a photo first?
Okay, everyone ready?
Janice, Samantha, Alex, you guys wanna? No? 1, 2, 3. Wait, yeah. Hey. Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Howdy, May.
Okay. Any other final questions before we wrap up?
Oh, thank you.
So if you have any further questions, yeah, feel free to just drop me on WhatsApp or email, as well as other way as well. Yeah, through SDS, no problem.
Okay.
Thank you, Wesley.
Thank you, Wesley.
Good sharing.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank
interesting.
you, everyone.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, ST as well. Bye.
Thank you.